guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing, discussing, talking about Stephen King's It. Now, as the title suggests, it will be spoilery. I voted on my Instagram if people wanted me to do a spoilery or a non-spoiler review for It, and people voted for spoilery. So I'm glad. I have a lot to say, I guess, about this book, or I have a lot of feelings about this book. I actually finished this in March. It's almost been a month since I've read it. I kind of wanted to gather my thoughts about this book and, you know, maybe try and even write something coherently. I haven't, and I thought about probably jotting something down right now, but I don't know. I think even if I jot stuff down, I'm not going to be able to do it as concisely or precisely as I would like. So I'm just going to talk and hopefully it'll flow naturally. I've heard so many good things about this book and I'm so excited I read it. So if it's already up, I'll link it down below, but I read this book as a part of the Superhero-thon, which was run by Bex at Bex and Books and G at G Swizzle Books, and this was a prompt within their readathon that was meant for the most intimidating book on my to-be-read. I actually wanted to read this. I've wanted to read this for a few years now. I first bought this book probably 4 years ago, but obviously the fucking size of it is ginormous. Like, it is insane. It is, let me have a look, 1,376 pages. So I was definitely intimidated and had been until I saw that readathon, and I thought, you know what, no, I'm gonna finally read it. I love the movie, the most recent 2017 movie, and I had watched that and I really enjoyed it. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna read the book finally and see what I think. This is now on my favorite shelf. It's a very mixed bag, I would say, as a book. There is so much. I think, like, for people who are scared to read this because of the horror aspect, it is very confronting. There's a few things in here that I thought, you know, not that I didn't think were necessary. I thought it definitely added to the horror of the story and of the plot, but it's very confronting. I think that's the best word. I wouldn't say this is scary. I didn't feel scared at any point. I definitely felt very confronted. There's a scene in this book by one of the characters. I can name them if you like, if you don't want to hear block your ears. Patrick Hocksetter. That character in this book was the most confronting and intense scenes in this whole book. So if you read this book and don't want to be confronted, I would definitely suggest to avoid his chapters. It's told in multiple point of views, which I personally really love. I love books in multiple point of views. I love to know how all the characters are feeling and what they're thinking and everything, and see how it affects different people. So I really like that. But it goes into that much detail, this book, that, like, not only do you get the main character's point of view, you get Patrick Hocksetter, who's, you know, one of the bullies at the school, and you get Billy, not Billy, fuck, what's his name? I don't remember his name. Fuck. Whatever the boy's name is, I can't remember now. I'm watching too many Stranger Things. The bully's name in the movie, he's the Australian guy. His perspective, you get, you just get so many perspectives. And, you know, I mentioned this when I was on my Instagram when I was reading it. There is so much detail. Like, you think, oh, Patrick Hocksetter, his, like, not that his point of view isn't relevant, but you kind of like, okay, like, we're just kind of getting his life. No, what happened to Patrick in this year kind of links back around, and, like, it is also interconnected. Like, I always talk about how J.K. Rowling has all these different lines and, like, how she meshes them together is so good. But Stephen King does it so well, where he literally, like, writes about things and then, like, it comes back around and it all adds, you know, it all connects and all adds onto the layers of the story that makes it that much more good, better, like that much more amazing and that much more intense. But yeah, Patrick Hocksetter, I think, is someone you should avoid if you don't want to be confronted. There are scenes in this book where he, as a child, smothers his baby brother. He kills his baby brother. He then chucks live animals into into a fridge in a junkyard and lets them die. Like, it's very confronting, and I would definitely not say this is for the faint-hearted. I think that's very important to mention, because I definitely was very confronted by those scenes and I didn't really like them, but I think it did add to the nature of the story and the plot. But I think what I really want to get across in this review, I think I'm going to get emotional talking about it, is this book was so amazing. Like, I think the movie shows off I'm going to kind of discuss both the movie and the book if you haven't noticed. I think the movie shows off this aspect really well. Like, this is a horror story, yes, I guess, but it's just a story, you know, about friendship and growing up, and like, it has so much more heart than I expected it to have. Like, I'm gonna cry, I think, but like, I bawled my eyes out when I finished this book. Like, it was so, it was an emotional journey. I could see it coming. Like, it starts when they're, you know, 12 and they go through all this stuff, and then they come back when they're older. I mean, it doesn't start when they're 12. I mean, their turmoil starts when they're 12. The book alters back between the past and the present. And I've tabbed some sections, so I might flick through and see which ones I've tabbed and read them out to you. But like, it's just such a beautiful story of friendship and growing up. And I think that's why I loved it so much. Like, you really care about the characters in this book, and you get so attached. And it's, yeah, really, really heartbreaking at the end, which I'll talk about. But yeah, I fell in love with this. I think the story of the friendship and the love that they have for each other in this book, which I think is so evident in the movie as well, is just what makes it. Like, I saw an interview with Stephen King talking about it, where he talks about how it was important for him to make characters that people like, because then you don't really care what happens to them if you don't care about the characters. And you definitely care about the characters, and you care about what happens. Anyway, I think if you're scared to read this, what I'm trying to get across is, if you're scared to read this because it's a horror story and it's a scary book, I definitely myself didn't think it's scary. My biggest fear is spiders. I mean, I guess if you've read the book, you know that there is a massive spider in the end of this. But when people were asking me when I was reading this if it was scary, I think certain things like a giant spider or a clown, your mind will only allow you to create something that is at your level. Like, for example, going back to Patrick, like, hearing someone describe smothering someone, you can't kind of like beat around the bush there. You picture it how they're talking about it. That's because it's real. Like, you know, hearing someone chuck a dog in a fridge, you can't not say that any other way than how it is. But like a clown or, you know, a mummy, a werewolf, these are all mentioned in this book. Your mind won't allow you to picture something that you can't handle, or it only goes off what you already know. So if you've never read any scary books, never watched any scary movies, you're just going to picture a werewolf that you think is a werewolf. Like, I don't think your mind, I know my mind won't allow me to create something that will scare me that much. I think some scary movies are so scary because as much as you somewhat know what you're in for, it can be a bit of a shock as to what like it will look like. For example, they did the movie, what is it going to look like in this version, and things like that. But the book is different. You're reading it, your mind will only allow you to create what you can handle. So I don't think it was scary for me at all. The only parts that I thought were confronting with Patrick. But what I mean to say is, if you're avoiding this because you think it's a scary book and it's a horror story, it is intense and there are confronting parts, but the majority of the story is just about friends and about growing up and forgetting your childhood and not wanting to grow up. It was such a good story. Like, before I before I read my tabs, I might just go full float. Like, the part that got me so much about this book was, you know, they have this experience when they're kids and they grow up and they kind of forget about each other, and you wonder, like, how do they forget? And it's all kind of explained. I don't know, for me, when I read it, I kind of felt like they forgot each other because of what had happened. Like, that was the kind of curse of what happened to them. Like, it was making them forget again. But I think, I don't know, maybe it was just what happens when you grow up. Like, you know, they all loved each other so much as kids, and then they come back together again and you're so happy that they remember each other again, and by the end of the book they forget each other again, and it's really heartbreaking. I really love this book. I mean, any book that affects me this much, I'll always give it 5 out of 5, because if it makes me react this emotionally, it's amazing, you know. And I think this, for me, really captured, you know, the fear of growing up and getting older and forgetting your childhood and forgetting that love you have when you're a kid. I think, you know, some people as adults do have that and have that connection with people still, but I think this book, and again, the movie, I think is an amazing adaptation. I think it's an amazing movie. I go on about it all the time. They really capture that connection that kids have with each other so well, you know, and I think not a lot of adults are blessed to have that connection with people. And it might be different, better or worse, I don't know, but yeah, that's why I love this book. You know, it has so much heart and so much friendship and love in it, as well as the horrible stuff. But as I said, you care about the characters and you want them to, you know, remember each other and love each other. And yeah, so oh, I knew I was going to cry when I was talking about it, because I bawled my eyes out when I finished this book. I was distraught because it was just so heartbreaking. Anyway, that's all I really wanted to say about it. I don't really always find that I can talk concisely or say what I want to say about a book or a movie or a thing that I love without going, ugh! So hopefully this is making some sense. Anyway, I'm going to read out some of the tabs that I had, because I think it just gives you a taste of like that it's not just a scary or confronting story. Let me have a look. I think I also tabbed some of these for like, he's got an amazing writing style. Like, as I said, he just is able to, you know, like, not even, like, I feel like, obviously when you read a book, you feel like you're watching it in your head. Like, the way he just, like, has the flashbacks and just so seamlessly moves into, like, the future, or then they're in the future and then they move back into the past. Like, he just writes so well and everything is so connected, you know. Like, as I said, you think that, you know, you're getting Bob's character from down the street and he's not very exciting. Why are we getting Bob's character? And then you realize, actually, Bob's character is connected to this thing that happened here, and it's all connected, and it's like, oh my God. So, it's talking about, this is the part where they do build the dam, at the Barrens, and the police officer comes and gets them in trouble. And it says, it's quite a long passage, but you know what, fuck it. Ben finally stepped forward, cheeks pale and eyes downcast, face trembling, as he fought grimly to keep from blubbering. Poor kid thought he was probably going to get 5 to 10 in Shawshank for blackfooting the drains, but he had owned up to it just the same. I'm trying to summarize it as best I can. And by doing that, he had forced the rest of them to come forward and back him up. It was either that or considered themselves bad guys, cowards, all the things their TV heroes were not. And that had welded them together for better or worse, had apparently welded them together for the last 27 years. Sometimes events are dominoes. The first knocks over the second knocks over the third, and there you are. When, Richie wonders, did it become too late to turn back? I think that's not only great writing, but just a great sentiment. Oh, it's talking about how Ben's avoiding the bullies. They're going to the theatre and Ben was hiding from the bullies so that they wouldn't find him. He's saying how, yeah, he was hiding, and Richie says, you can't let them ruin your life, man. Don't you know that? Eventually they go in, but they wait till everyone else goes in so the bullies don't see them. It's interesting looking back at what you've tabbed when you read a book. I've been doing this a lot more, and I would have done more as I went through, but I went to see Erina during this readathon, and this book is probably like a kilo on its own, so I didn't take it with me. So I took pictures of what I wanted to tab on my phone. I have to go through and tab it, but these are the ones I tabbed when I first started reading it. They're talking about Bill has brought his father's gun down to try and like defeat the monster on Neibolt Street, and Richie says, is it loaded? And Bill says, not yet. I got some bullets in here, but my dad says sometimes you look and then if the gun thinks you're not being careful, it loads itself so it can shoot you. His face uttered a strange smile which said, while he didn't believe anything so silly, he believed it completely, which I think is so great, because, you know, we all kind of have things like that we like know when we're like, we better just be careful just in case. Oh, this is why I tagged this part. So it's talking about Bill and how, you know, his family doesn't really notice him. That's a lot more prevalent in the book too. Like, the movie doesn't really show that as much. But his parents just shut down and they don't even notice him anymore. And it's how Richie is saying that Bill's going to go kill the monster or kill it. And he says, I think he really does mean to kill it if it's still there. Kill it and maybe cut off its head and take it to his father and say, look, this is what killed Georgie. Now will you talk to me again at night? Maybe just tell me how your day was, or who lost when you guys were flipping to see who paid for the morning coffee. So sad. It's got so much more. It's so much more than just a scary story. Like, you know, if you want a taste, watch the movie. Because I think, you know, sometimes watching a movie before reading a book isn't harmful. It kind of gives you a taste of what's to come. Oh, this quote kills me. This is what really got my heartstrings. Oh, God. Okay. Bill hesitated for a moment outside the door, suddenly frightened. It was not the it was not the unknown that scared him, not the supernatural. It was the simple knowledge that he was 15 inches taller than he had been in 1958, and minus most of his hair. He was suddenly uneasy, almost terrified at the thought of seeing them all again. Their children's faces almost worn away, almost buried under change as old as the old hospital had been buried. Banks erected inside their heads where once magic picture palaces had stood. We grew up, he thought. We didn't think it would happen, not then, not to us, but it did. And if I go in there, it will be real. We'll all be grown-ups now. Oh! How do they look, he asked, his voice faltering. Fuck! And the rest I haven't been able to tab. There's one other quote I want to look up. I want to show you guys about. It kind of summarizes the story and what it's about. Like, you know, these kids in the first, when they're younger, they're like, you know, 12 or 11, and you know, they have their little crushes on it, you know, Bev, or you know, they just have such this friendship together, and I don't know, it's just so great. I would definitely recommend it. It's an intense read, it's a heavy read, it's definitely not a light read, but it's just so beautiful and heartbreaking. Okay, this is like my favorite quote of the whole book. The whole book. So I'll end on this note. Sorry for the random quotes, but I think it just gives you a flavor of what I'm trying to say. Oh, actually there's two. This is not my favorite quote. I'll read this one out and then I'll read my favorite quote out. Calling it a simple schoolgirl crush was like saying a Rolls Royce was a vehicle with 4 wheels, something like a hay wagon. She did not giggle wildly and blush when she saw him, nor did she chalk his name on the trees or write it on the walls of the kissing bridge. She simply lived with his face in her heart all the time, a kind of sweet, hurtful ache. She would have died for him. It's just like, I don't know. I think even just to go on Goodreads and read through the quotes, you just get the idea that it's not just some scary story. And that's what I really wanted to get across in this review. Last, my favorite quote of the whole book. It's just so great and so beautiful. Okay, here we go. Maybe there aren't such things as good friends or bad friends. Maybe there are just friends, people who stand by you when you're hurt and who help you feel not so lonely. Maybe they're always worth being scared for and hoping for and living for. Maybe worth dying for too. It's what it has to be. No good friends, no bad friends. Only people you want, need to be with. People who build their houses in your heart. Like, fuck me up. Oh, let me know what you thought of this review. I tried to and, you know, be as coherent as I thought. And that's all that really I wanted to say about this book. It's a huge fucking book. It took me a week and a half to read it. But it's definitely, you know, worth it for me anyway. So yeah, if you've read this book, let me know what you thought. And yeah, hope you like this review.